Hello friends, welcome to Knowledge India once again. I hope all of you are doing well and learning things. In this particular tutorial, I'm going to talk to you about the pricing of different load balancers. So as you have already seen that AWS is currently offering three types of load balancers. So one is CLB, which is basically classic one. The first one, right? That's the classic load balancer. Uh, then they launched ALB, application load balancer, which is layer 7, and then the network load balancer, which is layer 4. So I have already shared detailed tutorials for all the three types of load balancers, explaining in detail that how to set it up and different uh, different things related to its usage, what all you need to take care, how can you go ahead and put your application behind these load balancers. So in case you have not seen that, in the description I have put a playlist as well where you can see all of those videos together at one place. So look at the description of this YouTube video. In this particular tutorial, I'm going to keep it really short, but I'm going to try and explain you that how does the pricing work in case of load balancers. First of all, uh, as you would understand that load balancers are like managed service and there is no option to just switch it off, right? So once you create the load balancer, its billing starts and the billing would stop only when you go ahead and actually delete the load balancer. Okay. Uh, so all the time, right from start till the time you delete, you are going to pay for your load balancer. Now, uh, as the name says, it is a managed one and it is elastic. So you don't have to worry about its scalability at all. As more and more traffic comes onto your load balancer, it will expand automatically or it will scale automatically to support the incoming load or incoming traffic. Now, the way pricing works is slightly different uh, in case of application load balancer and network load balancer, which are the newer ones, and the classic one. So let's go ahead and take examples and try to understand the same. Okay. All right. So I'm there on this URL. I'll put this URL as well in the description. You can go here and see for all the three types of load balancers. I'll try to explain you because sometimes it becomes very tricky to understand this. So first of all, let's start with the oldest one, which is basically classic load balancer. Now this one is really easy. The pricing for classic load balancer depends on two factors, which is basically first one is that for how many hours your load balancer has been running. So, and second factor is how much amount of data passed through your load balancer or got processed by your load balancer, right? So there is a per GB rate, which as you can see on the screen, it is there. So for the number of, for that full duration, the amount of data which passed through your load balancer, it will get calculated. For example, let's say 4 GB of data, 4 GB of data passed through. So 4 into $0.008, that would be your data charges. So the combination of these two would be your pricing. So this one is really very straight. Now let's go to application load balancer and network load balancer. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about application load balancer. So I'll click here. In case of application and network load balancer, they have introduced something called LCU. LCU is load balancer capacity units. In case of network load balancer, they actually call it NLCU, network load balancer capacity units. In case of ALB, they just call it LCU. So what we need to understand properly is how is this, like how do we do this LCU calculation? So factors are again two. First one, of course, is for the amount of hours or basically the number of hours your load balancer has been running. That's the first factor. And the second factor is how many LCU hours have been consumed. So let's understand what's the definition of LCU first of all. So I'm currently talking about application load balancer. Let's go and see the definition of LCU. So in case of application load balancer, please see with in case of one LCU, with one LCU you may get some amount of connections and bandwidth and etc. So let's try and see that. In with one LCU, you are charged only on the dimension with the highest usage. So as we move forward, we will see that we'll go ahead and try to calculate the LCU based on all these factors. And whichever factor would give the highest LCU, that particular factor will consider, or that particular LCU would be picked up for calculation. So I'll just explain you that. First, let's understand with one LCU, you will get 25 new connections per second. With one LCU, you will get 300 active connections per minute, and you will get 2.22 megabits per second. Now this is tricky. Whenever you are reading data, basically the any unit of data, be very uh, you know cautious about this B. So if it is small b, it is bits. If it is capital B, it is bytes, right? And you know that 1 byte is equal to 8 bits, of course. So it is 2.22 megabits per second. All right. Uh, and you will also get 1,000 rule evaluations per second. So what are these rules? If you look at our ALB video, we have understood that how can you go ahead and define rules. For example, if if your website is knowledgeindia.in, for example, slash let's say uh, courses.aspx, right? Just an example, courses.aspx. So you may choose to send this to one target group. In the same way, there could be another rule where you say if it is knowledgeindia.in slash videos.aspx, I want to send it to target group 2. You can do that, right? So if you go ahead and look at the ALB video, if you have not seen already, you will see this in more detail. So 1,000 rule evaluations per second. So now let us go ahead and actually see by taking an example below. One more thing you should know, that up to 10 rules, 10 or fewer rules if it is there, that would not, for that the pricing would not be there, or that you will get kind of free. So we'll see that in this example. So let's take this example. Let's assume your application receives an average of 1 new connection per second, and each lasting 2 minutes. So one connection happens per second, one new connection happens per second, and it lasts for 2 minutes. So basically like 120 seconds, right? A client sends an average of 5 requests per second and consumes 300 KB in bandwidth for the duration of the connection. Understand, for the duration of the connection. So with one connection, the amount of bandwidth which is getting consumed is 300 KB. It is kilobytes. Also, client sends average of 5 requests per second, and you have configured 60 rules. 60 rules are there at your application load balancer level to route your client request. Now you have to calculate what would be your monthly cost for your application load balancer. So of course, the number of hours, the first factor which we talked about, the first factor, which is number of hours for which your application load balancer is running, that is going to be constant, right? The second one is something which we need to calculate, which is basically how many LCU hours. So let's try to, as we have already discussed, these are 4 factors: new connections, active connections, bandwidth, and rule evaluations. We'll try to calculate LCU for all of them. So first one, let's do new connections. So we said 1 new connection per second, right? We already know that with one LCU, you may get up to 25 new connections per second. So if I have to calculate, it is simple division, right? So 1 by 25, that's what is being done. So 1 by 25, this means 0.04 LCUs. Okay, this is simple. Next one is how many active connections. So if you see, with one LCU, you get 300 active connections per minute. Okay. So in this case, if you see, one new connection happens per second and it lasts for 2 minutes. So if you try to calculate, it's like lasts for 120 seconds, right? So if you try to take the average, it becomes how much? It becomes like 120 active connections per minute. I hope you are getting it. Uh, think of an example if the problem statement would have said that your application gets, let's say, 2 new connections per second, and each connection lasts for 2 minutes. Then what would be the case? 2 minutes is like 120 seconds, and 2 new connections per second, so it will become like 240 would be active connections per minute. Just giving an example. So with 120, if you try to find out, 120 divided by 3000 would be again 0.04 LCUs. Now here is the a bit tricky one. In case of bandwidth, if you try to see, what did we say? We said 300 kb is what is required per connection, right? If you try to see here, uh, in one LCU, it supports or it gives you up to 2.22 megabits per second. And here we said megabits per second. And here we said that one connection actually needs 300 kb. So let us try to first do this. If you actually convert 300 kb to what? To MB, it is 2.4 megabits. So 300 kb, if you try to convert this to megabyte, I'm not seeing it here. Megabyte, it would be zero point 0.3. But you know that 1 byte is equal to 8 bits. So if you just multiply it by 8, 0.3 into 8, you are going to get 2.4. All right. So basically, with each client connection, it is transferring 300 kb of data, right? So this would like so per if you try to see with per second, the amount of data transfer in this case becomes 2.4 MB or megabits per second. If you try to divide it, it will become 2.4 divided by 2.22 is 1.08 LCUs. Yes, you are wondering that how are we taking that 300 kb is happening per second? Then please understand that an average is being taken. We already in the question it is said that there is 1 new connection per second, and of course every second 1 new connection is happening. So if you try to see at an average per second 300 kb will get used, because though one new connection would actually last for 2 minutes, right? And of course, if you try to spread that 300 kb, it will get spread across those 2 minutes. So at an average, per second, it is going to be 300 kb. If suppose the question would have said here, 5 new connections are happening per second, and for every connection, 300 kb bandwidth gets used, then what would be the answer? The answer would be 5 into 300 will be 1500 kb. Okay, so understand kb is kilobytes here, so you need to convert it to bits. So we just did 300 kb is 2.4 megabits per second. And if you because we know that in one LCU you get 2.22 megabits, we just do the division and we get 1.08 LCUs. The last factor, which is the rules evaluation per second, how many are happening. So we are assuming that all the configured rules are getting processed for a request. So configured rules are 60, which is given here. And win 60, I told you that 10 would be free. So basically 50, you will get charged for 50 rules. And there are 5 requests per second, right? So 5 into 50 is 250. So totally 250 rules are getting evaluated per second. Now let us see. 1000 rule evaluations you get in one LCU. So here 250 are getting evaluated. So calculation is simple, 250 by 1000, which is basically 0.25 LCU. So now out of these four, if you see, the maximum LCU value has come for bandwidth. So that one would be picked, 1.08 LCU, and based on this, the pricing would happen. So if you go ahead and see here, for 1.08 LCU, depending on the region in which your load balancer is running, application load balancer is running, the LCU charge would be applied. Per hour LCU charge would be applied, and that would get added with the load balancer hours. Now, good thing here is whether it is if it is partial or full, the number of hours, or even if it is partial hour, then for you get charged partially. That's a good thing. I mean, it would not get rounded off to complete next hour. Rather, it will get uh, for the partial hour you'll get charged. That's a good thing. So if you see for 1.08 LCU the charge has been taken, and plus for the number of hours, hourly charge is there for ALB. Of course, that one would be taken. So quickly, within few minutes, let us see the other one, which is NLB. In case of NLB, it works, kind of same way. The only thing is here there are only three factors: the number of new connections, right? New connections or flows, and number of active connections, and then the bandwidth. Here, as we know, the rule resolution, right? The rules which were getting evaluated in case of ALB, that thing is not available here. So let's very quickly see this. Let us assume your application receives one new connection per second, each lasting 2 minutes, again same consuming 300 KB. Let us calculate what would be the cost. Very simple. So it is one new connection per second. So that means we get 800 new connections, right? In one LCU. So 1 by 800 will be 0.00125 NLCU. Then what next one is active connections we are talking. So again, same logic, basically 1 into 120. So that is 120 active connections per minute. So in case of 120 active connections, we'll just do the division. 120 divided by 100,000 active connections, because in one network LCU you get 100,000 active connections, you can see. So this also would be a very, very small number, 0.0012. Last one is again same thing, 300 KB translates to 2.4 divided by 2.22, 1.08 NLCU. So this one would be taken, and the same way pricing would go ahead, right? So mostly the pricing for ALB and NLB is same. You need to understand how to calculate the LCU. Of course, you cannot go and very fine at a very fine level. You cannot do it. You always need to basically approximate it at an average that how much connections happen, and things like that. Of course, LCU varies as well, based on how the load is there on your load balancer. One last thing which I want to tell you, and that's really important, is as around the costing related to cross zone load balancing. I hope all of you remember that what cross zone load balancing is. Now in case of application load balancer and classic load balancer, there is no extra charge for cross zone load balancing. I just want to show you. Am I charged for AWS data transfer when I enable cross-zone load balancing in application load balancer? No. Okay, good. Second one is classic load balancer. Quickly. No, you are not charged for regional data transfer. But in case of NLB, guys, for cross-zone data transfer, when you enable cross-zone load balancing, the data transfer which happens, yes, you pay for it. So let me show you that thing here. Yeah. Am I charged for regional AWS data transfer when I enable cross-zone load balancing? Yes, you will be charged. So this is something which you need to understand. Also, when you enable cross-zone load balancing, the number of targets which you can attach in case of NLB, that reduces. Okay, it will become 200 overall. When cross-zone load balancing is not enabled, per availability zone, you will get to add 200 targets. That is something which I wanted to let you guys know. Okay, in case you do not remember what cross-zone load balancing is, I have explained it in detail in earlier videos, so I'll not take that time here. I hope you learned, you understood it. There, sometimes it becomes tricky to try and understand, so that's why I thought of explaining it. I hope you will be able to understand and estimate for your workloads. Please do share this video with your friends so that they also get benefited. All the videos are there in the playlist in the description section. I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you. You are watching this video on Knowledge India. We request you to subscribe to our channel and press this bell icon so that you can get updates regarding all our upcoming videos. You can also go ahead and look at our playlists where you can find different videos related to certifications. If you have any query or request, go ahead and post it at the community tab. Thanks for watching. See you.